Hey there YouTube, Speedrobo here, and today I have a new Katana World deck profile for you. So the buddy is Skull Warrior Bones of the Four Birds of Kutenhaba, and if you're familiar with my channel and a longtime viewer, you'll have seen this card before. This is the buddy that I use for almost all of my Skull Warrior decks, but today it's not only a Skull Warrior deck, it's a Skull Warrior Water deck. And the buddy is also a Skull Warrior Water. So let's get started by looking at the grade 3s. Four copies of Skull Warrior Bones of the Four Birds of Kutenhaba. Size 3 Impact Monster, 924, call cost of 2 gauge, and destroy one or more Skull Warrior on your field. Whenever she attacks, you mill the top 4, and for each Skull Warrior among those top 4 milled, deal 1 damage to your opponent, and she's got move. This card is extremely powerful, but you do have to be careful of the Skull Warrior amount in your deck. Make sure your Skull Warrior to non-Skull Warrior ratio is very large. Next, 2 copies of Linkside Military Divisor Kiganryu. Kiganryu has gotten an evolution. A 7/3/6, size 3, call cost of put on top of a Skull Warrior on your field, and pay 2 gauge. It reduces the size of all of your size 1 Skull Warriors by 1, and whenever it attacks, you choose 1 size 1 Skull Warrior from your drop and revive it by paying its call cost. Penetrate and Soul Guard. This card is very powerful, but you do have to have another Skull Warrior to put it onto the field, so make sure you have your revival options ready for when you want to play him, and that's part of the reason why I only run 2 copies. Next, this deck is a little bit size 3 heavy. We have 4 copies of Heavenly Vengeance Full Equip Cannon, another new card. 7/2/5, size 3, call cost of 2 gauge, and put the top card into the soul. If this card is on your left or right, the size of the Skull Warrior or Water card on your center is reduced by 2. So similar to Kiganryu, it is a size reduction option. Then it has the counter ability, counter, destroy a Skull Warrior or Water other than this monster on your field. If you do, charge 1, heal 1, penetrate. So what this gives you is another powerful charge option, and the important part of this is that it has the Skull Warrior and Water attribute. So because it has the Skull Warrior attribute, it's a charge option that gets you burn damage off of your finisher. Very good stuff. Size 2s are next. 4 copies of Flash of Purple Arc Hyojuru. A 5/2/4, size 2. When this card enters the field, if you have another Skull Warrior or Thunder Empire on your field, destroy a monster on your opponent's field. If you do, charge the number of cards from your deck equal to that card's size. Then at the end of the turn, destroy this card. So another charge option with the Skull Warrior attribute. This is very helpful for Skull Warriors as a whole, not just this deck. If you have any interest in playing Skull Warriors, get yourself a playset. It's worth it. Next, 4 copies of Celestial Deity of the Misty Dew Water Nanase, a 6/2/6, size 2 for 2 gauge, and put 2 water from your drop zone into this card's soul. Only has the water attribute, does have Soul Guard and double attack, and another ability. When this card is destroyed, destroy a monster on your opponent's field, charge a gauge, and remove 1 card from your opponent's gauge. This is an extremely powerful effect, and there are many options to get this destroy off, including Full Equip Kanan. And this is one of the deck's main combos. Nanase to center, Kanan to the side, reduces Nanase's size, activating Kanan's counter ability to destroy Nanase, get Nanase's destroy effect. That's all for size 2, so now let's talk size 1. 2 copies of Crage Surging Waves, Makaizao. A 4/3/4, size 1, for 1 gauge that destroys itself at the end of the turn. Now, this card doesn't seem all that powerful, and the reason why it's in the deck is because it has both the Skull Warrior and the Water attribute. It's a decent crit beater for those attributes, so that's why I run it mostly for the Skull Warrior and Water attribute. Next, 4 copies of Master Clown Dark Fox, a 6/1 size 1 for 1 gauge, and at the end of the battle that a Skull Warrior or Adventurer on your field attack, choose a monster on your opponent's field, and you may destroy a monster on your field. If you do, put a soul from the chosen card into the drop zone and then destroy that card. So this is another way to get the Nanase's Destroy effect off if you want, and wipe your opponent's board while gaining gauge and draining your opponent's. This card is extremely powerful and is a great answer to heavy soul matchups such as Ancient World and even Prism Dragons, because while the effect Destroy won't go off most of the time against Prisms, you will still get the soul removal, and that is paramount. Next, 2 copies of Retainer of the Demonic Dragon Resurrected Dragon Bones, a 3/1 size 1 that when it enters the field you mill 2, and act, pay 1 gauge. If you do, put a size 3 from your drop into your hand. You may only use this ability once per turn. So this card is another fantastic card because it can refresh Katana, it can refresh Kiganryu, and it can refresh the buddy of the deck, the main finisher. This card is absolutely fantastic. But if it's so good, Speedrobo, why are you only running 2 copies? Well, the reason I'm only running 2 copies is because it comes out of the Golden Buddy Champion box. Yeah, that's not good. This card's very hard to find and you only get 2 of it out of the box. So if you don't have a Golden Buddy Champion box, I recommend running a different revival option in this slot. Demon Way Jigo Kuzu will work. That's the Executioner Demon Way card that revives 1 Skull Warrior Executioner of your choice from the drop. While it does not have the Skull Warrior attribute, it will be a decent revival option in this slot, so consider that if you do not have Dragon Bones. Next, 4 copies of Snake Princess Setsuna, a 3/1 size 1 Skull Warrior. When this card enters the field, you may pay 1 gauge. If you do, call a size 1 or less Skull Warrior from your drop zone by paying its call cost. At the end of the turn, destroy this card. I've heard time and time again people tell me that this card is bad. Those people are wrong. This card is amazing. Do you like Return to the Underworld? Do you wish Return to the Underworld had the Skull Warrior attribute and was printed on a monster so that it's easier to revive? There you go. Done and done. Snake Princess Setsuna. Oh, do you want to get 2 extra attacks during your battle phase? No problem. Here's Linkside Military Divisor Kiganryu. Attack with him. Revive Setsuna. Activate Setsuna. Revive whoever you want. Get more attacks. What's there to not like? Setsuna's amazing. Run her. Going into size 0s next. 4 copies of 5th Omni Beast Messenger Goshigoma, a 2/2 size 0, and if a size 2 or greater Katana World monster would be called from your hand, its call cost is reduced by 1. Well, let me tell you something. There are a lot of size 2 or greater Katana World monsters in this deck. Yes, sir. This is another fantastic charge option for Skull Warrior. While it doesn't directly charge you gauge, it does save you a ton of gauge in the long run, making this card very valuable. And the last monster in the entire deck, 4 copies of Premature Passing Bibiwakazu, a 2/1 size 0 that attack cannot be nullified if attacking alone, and when it enters the field, from your hand, put a total of 2 Skull Warrior or Water monsters from your deck into your drop zone and shuffle your deck. Why is this so good? Well, Skull Warriors and Water both like to pull things from the drops, so search for whatever you need, put it into the drop, put it into your hand, problem solved. You now have it. Furthermore, if you just need drop zone fodder to fill up Nanase's soul, Bibiwakazu's got you covered. Search for any 2 waters, put them into the drop, put them into Nanase's soul. There you have it. Spells are the last thing on today's menu. And we have 4 copies of Demon Way Arakuyo. You may only cast this card if 2 or more Skull Warrior on your field was destroyed during this turn. Cast cost, pay 1 gauge. Counter, draw 3 cards. You may only cast Demon Way Arakuyo once per turn. This is the easiest condition in the world to fulfill. Between your monsters having effects that destroy themselves, between you having monsters that with effects that destroy your own monsters, such as Cannon and Dark Fox, you're going to be able to get this effect off during your turn and during your opponent's turn almost every single turn. No problem. This card is basically Nice One, but you draw 3 instead of 2. It's amazing. Run it. Next up, we have 2 copies of Demon Wave Fresh Blood. Cast cost of 1 gauge, put up to 1 water monster from your deck into your hand. Shuffle your deck. You may only cast this card once per turn. You need your buddy? Get your buddy. You need cannon? Get cannon. You need Nanase? Get Nanase. There you go. Consistency is now yours. This would also be a good replacement for Dragon Bones if you don't have it. So if you don't have Dragon Bones, you can run this at 4 copies and that will work. Next, 2 copies of Electron Disorder. Gain 1 life and charge equal to the number of cards, equal to the number of monsters on your field, excuse me. So, Electron Disorder, good stuff, good charge spell. Why do I only run it at 2? I wanted to make room for more Skull Warriors in the deck to improve my burn damage. And there are a lot more Skull Warriors now that either save me gauge, charge me gauge, what have you. Electron Disorder is fine at 2. And the last spell in the deck, 4 copies of Waterploy River Festival. You may only cast this card when a monster on your field is destroyed. Counter, put a water monster or a size 1 or less monster from your drop zone into your hand. Your monsters will just be destroyed left or right during your turn, during your opponent's turn. Whatever you feel like, man. This card is absolutely fantastic. Now, why am I not running Demon Way Jigokuzu or Return to the Underworld or Odd Ritual Skull Festival in this? And the reason why is that there's a lot of anti-Katana World, anti-Drop Zone hate running around, especially in the meta right now. Darkness Dragon World has it, Star Dragon World has it, and there are lots and lots of options to prevent you from calling from the drop. This does not call from the drop, it takes cards from the drop and adds them to the hand, which gets around the Invitation to Deathground, Debris Sweeper stuff that prevents calls from drop. As this does not call from drop, it goes from drop to hand. It still works and still gets around that. Furthermore, it has the water attribute, which is another nice touch. Alright, well that has been the deck. So let's talk about some of the main combos involved in it. The first main combo I already talked about a bit. It's Cannon, Nanase, and then any size 0 of your choice. And this allows you to counter timing, charge a bunch of gauge, remove your opponent's gauge, and pick off your opponent's monsters even during their turn. So ideally, you'll want to be saving Cannon's once per turn counter for when your opponent enters battle phase and to remove their most powerful threat. The other core idea of this deck is to switch between the water defense and the Skull Warrior aggression. This deck does this very well because a lot of water monsters are Skull Warrior. In fact, the only non-Skull Warrior monster in this deck is Nanase. So when you feel like switching to the Skull Warrior aggression, you go Kiganryu, any size 1s of your choice, Swing, Swing, Swing Skill, Setsuna, activate Setsuna, revive another size 1 of your choice, Swing, Swing, final phase, wipe your field, impact call, swing, mill the top. Based on how this deck is, the ratios in this deck, you will most likely get 3 Skull Warriors and 1 spell, meaning this is a total of 5 damage. That's pretty lethal. And you're going to want to learn matchups while playing this deck, and you're going to want to understand what your opponent is playing so that you can have a better grasp of what strategy you need to go with for what deck and what situation you're in. Because certain times going with the water defense is superior. Sometimes it's better to use the all-out aggression tactics of Skull Warriors, and sometimes it's better to go for a mix of both. If you have any further questions, drop them down in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. I've been Speedrobo, and I'll see you later.